No, I'll do it.
Are we going to?
I thought 4 was a quorum,
Okay.
but I can move over JP's closer to you, or
You know, we'll wait. The traffic is so bad downtown, there's still maybe people coming.
okay.
I mean, like gridlock, like 45 minutes for me to get from 25th Street.
Oh,
So, all right, so we're going to call this meeting to order. And clerk, are we ready with our live stream? And commissioners, I'm going to remind you to turn your mics on. You should see a green light. Okay. And we will begin with the land acknowledgement, and we'll ask Commissioner Kemp to read that, please.
Thank you, Chair. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we live, work, learn, and commune is the original homelands of the indigenous people of West Sacramento, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We acknowledge that and we thank the original inhabitants who have occupied, maintained, and secured this place, and who still exist on this land. We respect and celebrate the many diverse indigenous peoples still connected to this land on which we gather. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Singh, if you'd lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Thank you.
All right, the commission did not meet in a closed session this evening to list, and we have no items or actions to take on that. So the next item on our agenda is presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda. Do we have any comment cards for items that are not on the agenda?
We do not.
Okay. We are moving on to our regular consent agenda. And I think our item on the consent agenda is the approval of the minutes from the May 22nd, 2024 meeting. It has been a while since we've met, folks. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move.
And just a reminder, if you could say your name when you move, and second, please.
Thank you. It's been a while. Commissioner Kemp and I move to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Do we have a second?
Singh, I second the agenda.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, with that, the minutes carry. And now we are opening up our public hearing section. Our first item on the agenda is to announce the availability of the 2025 Community Development Block Grants, CDBG. Got the acronym down, people. And so we will turn it over to you. And for those of you, as a reminder, this is one of the biggest things we deal with. It is not the last time you're going to hear about CDBG in this council, in this commission.
Thank you.
Take it away, Isaiah.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairperson White and members of the Commission. My name is Isaiah Alford. I am the Community Investment Planner in the Economic Development and Housing Department. The purpose of this presentation is to announce the availability of the 2025 CDBG funding. After the presentation, staff requests that the Commission open a public hearing to take any comments. And upon closing the public hearing, staff respectfully requests the Commission to provide any comments regarding the 2025 goals. So in 2016, the City of West Sacramento became an entitlement jurisdiction, which enabled the city to receive funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. A requirement of the CDBG program is to develop a consolidated plan, which must occur every 3 to 5 years. The consolidated plan must examine the needs of low-income persons and neighborhoods. CDBG funds must be used to address one of 3 national objectives. And the city must develop an annual action plan, which allocates CDBG funds to achieve the goals of the 5-year consolidated plan. So national objectives were used to establish the goals of the current consolidated plan. The first national objective benefits low and moderate income households. And the second is the prevention of elimination of slums and blights. And the third national objective is an urgent need. 70% of the jurisdiction's allocation must be used to benefit low to moderate income households. So the CDBG funding program is a strict funding source, but allows for entitlement jurisdictions to use the money for a wide range of activities. These activities can be, but not limited to, acquisition and rehab of affordable housing, construction and rehab of public facilities and public infrastructure. Economic development activities are also eligible for assistance under the CDBG program. And activities can also include homeless, youth, and senior programs. So here's the current 5-year consolidated plan that was approved by City Council in April 2021. Goal number 1 addresses homelessness, which has been a key focus of the council's strategic plan over the past few years. Goal number 2 also addresses homelessness by creating housing opportunities. Goal number 3 provides infrastructure improvements in neighborhoods suffering from disinvestment. Goal number 4 provides fair housing education and counseling services to low and moderate income residents and landlords. And goal number 5 supports small businesses by strengthening economic opportunities for small businesses and employment. And goal number 6 is the preservation of affordable housing stock to provide housing rehab funding for single-family units. So these goals represent the needs that were identified during the consolidated plan process, but not all goals will be achieved nor funded with CDBG funds solely. So here are some of the CDBG projects that were funded over the current consolidated plan. The Homeless Emergency Housing Rehab Project, which is the illustration on the background. In April 2024, the City Council approved the purchase of the former El Cajon and Pickwick motels for an expansion of the operations and homeless emergency housing programs. Both motels require substantial rehabilitation needs and will provide interim housing for persons experiencing homelessness, with the goal of getting program participants permanent housing. This activity fulfilled goal number 1 and goal number 2 of the current consolidated plan. The North Riverwalk Trail Extension Project was funded in 2016 and 2022 funds. CDBG funds were used for the design improvements to a section of the Riverwalk Trail that connects to I Street Bridge, and this provides ADA accessibility for low-income residents. In 2020 and 2022, CDBG allocations were used for the Washington and Broderick Lighting and Safety Project to improve pedestrian safety and visibility through the Washington and Broderick neighborhoods by replacing and updating streetlights and traffic signals throughout the Washington and Broderick neighborhood, specifically in Census Tract 101.01, which is labeled a low-income census tract. Fair housing services have been funded $21,000 every year of the current consolidated plan. And Home Key Supportive Services at 817 West Capitol Ave primarily serves the homeless population through case management. So how are activities selected? Not all eligible projects are good uses for CDBG funds due to federal regulations and requirements such as the CDBG timeliness test. Staff attempts to be strategic and use CDBG funds or projects that are ready to move forward and will not expend an undue amount to meet our federal requirements. So we typically use CDBG funds to leverage other private, state, and federal funding sources. So here's a breakdown of the grantees, which is the city annual allocation. The city receives an annual allocation amount of approximately $500,000 every year. The maximum amount for general administration and planning is 20%. And any service activities are capped at 15% of the total allocation of a given year. And then the remaining 65% is for eligible projects and activities selected. And I would like to emphasize that all activities and projects must meet a national objective. So this brings me to my next slide, the 2025 anticipated allocation amount. We haven't received the CDBG allocations for the 2025 year, but we anticipate receiving an amount closer to the prior year's allocation of $519,475. 20% will go towards general administration. We anticipate receiving $100,000 in program income receipts, and that makes the total available of $515,580. So here are some recommended activities for the 2025 program year. The Homeless Emergency Housing Rehabilitation Project. I want to say that these are activities that staff are recommending for the 2025 year because they are ready to move forward, given the city's ongoing investments as well as challenges meeting annual CDBG schedule requirements. So this first activity will continue to need improvements. Additionally, we are in a process of negotiating another site that will likely require some additional rehab. Homeless supportive services will continue to support case management, a key component of services that program participants will receive. And lastly, general administration and planning will be used for program administration activities such as processing the annual action plan, processing the consolidated plan, and as well as the CAPER, known as the Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report. Oh, and lastly, I want to say that these proposed activities are not set in stone. We are here to gain feedback on these proposed activities and any activities that you may want staff to consider. So here is the 2025 Annual Action Plan schedule. The first steps of this Annual Action Plan is to hold presentations before the EDH Commission and the Parks Commission. With any recommendations we receive, staff plans on completing a draft of the 2025 Annual Action Plan and making that draft available for a 30-day public comment period. Once the 30-day public comment period is up, we plan on attending the workshop for the City Council to receive any feedback from City Council. And then staff plans on presenting before City Council with the final draft of the Annual Action Plan for adoption. So this concludes my presentation. Staff requests that the Commission open a public hearing to take any comments. And upon closing the public hearing, staff respectfully requests the Commission to prioritize goals for the 2025 CDBG funding. Thank you for your time. I'm open for questions.
Thank you so much. And at this time, we will open for public hearing. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, we do, from Don Bosley.
Good evening. I come with handouts. May I approach the...
Can he give us handouts?
Yes.
Okay. They have to be available to all of the members of the public in the room as well as online too. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for the chance to share a little bit. I'm Don Bosley. I'm the Executive Director of the Mercy Coalition here in West Sacramento. We are a homeless services provider, mental health services provider, and we do an awful lot of stuff. And I'm here to talk to you a little bit about considering the usage of CDB funds for, man, I practice that too. I can't say CDBG without fumbling. Use those funds for considering for the Mosaic Village project that we are beginning to work on. I didn't realize the city sort of already had a plan going for these funds, so I don't want Raul and Isaiah to be mad at me, but I'm going to share it with you anyway. What's happening is that since we opened the Recovery Cafe in 2022 over at Community Lutheran Church, suddenly property has become available to us over there, and we have seen an incredible ability to build a campus for mental health services, workforce development, and edible food recovery, homeless services, system navigation, all happening on one campus. We are a supportive services provider for West Sacramento and for Project Home Key and other places. We have that, but that role has also given us the ability to see that housing alone cannot get the job done. There's such a great need for real, ongoing, enduring mental health services, for navigators who are trauma-informed, case managers who are trauma-informed. So the target population that we're working with over at the Mosaic Village right now, as it stands, are folks that are impacted by homelessness, impacted by mental health disorders, substance use disorders, domestic violence, incarceration. Trauma is the thing that links them all together. And we want to create a place there where we can meet a lot of their needs. One key thing that's happening as we continue to build out the Mosaic Village, and on the third page of your handout is a map of what we envision the Mosaic Village looking like eventually. But across that whole campus of new buildings and things, we're going to be able to take our existing JAM Academy internship program, where we take people from our priority population in 1 year paid internships to be able to work in janitorial and administrative and warehousing and food services. That's going on already with the limited number of buildings, and it'll only expand as we continue to build out there. There's a lot of ways that the city could be involved in this, CDBG or otherwise, and we're hoping that that partnership can go deep. Let me close just by saying this. You know, I am a son of West Sacramento, and I am unbelievably proud of the city that we have become, but I recently still heard statistics that a child born on West Capitol Avenue right now has a life expectancy that's 20 years less than a child born in Davis. That's from the Yolo County Public Health. I'm not okay with that, and we need to find ways to disrupt some of these cycles, and we really feel like the Mosaic Village is a way to get there. So thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Don. Do we have other public comment?
No other comments.
All right, with that, we will close the public hearing. And we have questions now from the commission for Elijah. I have a few, but I want to give everybody else a chance first. JP, you always have one or two questions in your pocket.
And then I do too.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation.
JP, into the mic, please. Just a reminder.
Yeah, it's on.
Get really close. There you go.
Thanks for the presentation, very informative. I have one question. The council passed this program for 5 years, so that's the last year of the resolution adopted in 2021, right? So what's going on for the next year, next 5 years, or 1 year or 2 years? I'd like to know that. So because last year or year before, we asked for some funding for other projects. They say we are locked in. We cannot go out of the rhyme because pretty much set the stage. So I think for next 5-year plan or whatever the council decide, if the staff is working on that, I'd like to have some information on that next meeting. Or you can email us so we can have some input for the project you intend to include in the next 4 or 5 years, whatever it is.
Yeah, so for the consolidated plan, we're entering the 5th year of the current consolidated plan. We will start working next year on the next 5-year consolidated plan. So the 5-year consolidated plan focuses on different goals that we're going to identify from various reports, such as the analysis of impediments, which is a study that was done to identify priority needs of the community. So the consolidated plans basically look at as like goals for the next 5 years that we want to accomplish. And then the annual action plan is the activities that we want to fund to support those goals.
Can I, just a clarifying question for what JP asked. When we talk about these years, you're talking about fiscal years, not calendar years, correct? So we're entering into the 2025 fiscal year, even though we're in the calendar year.
Correct. It is the fiscal year.
And is that fiscal year July to July or October to October?
July 1st to June 30th.
June 30th,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
Wait, yep. Could you take us to the slide where you have the deadlines? Oh, yep, the one before. And thank you for the presentation, Isaiah. The slide before. Just want to get a sense of the time, because you your ask today was to give you some feedback, and
Yeah,
so
of
the
course.
window's kind of it's helpful to see this window. I have as I'm thinking about the kind of feedback to provide you with, and feedback I want to also ask those in my community. There's a limited amount of funding, as always, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a limited number of projects that you can fund. How do you measure like the need? This is now, I guess this is not our first time doing this. We're in the stage of updating the strategic plan. And so how do you measure how previous efforts and projects we've funded have filled the need? So as we're thinking about projects to recommend to support, how do we know how we've kind of filled the gap with previous projects?
So that's a great question, and I want to answer it to
You
my
can
best
take your
ability.
time.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? I want to make sure I answer to the best ability.
How are you measuring that what we've funded in the past has filled a need?
So one thing that we have to measure is the national objective. So each goal and activity has to fulfill the national objective of providing income and activities to benefit the low and moderate income individuals. So 70% of the allocation every year has to fulfill that requirement. Mm-hmm. Along with that, we have to make sure that we hit our goals for the current consolidated plan. So the two goals that we primarily focus on is addressing homelessness. How we've addressed homelessness is by providing stabilized. That's not.
You're doing great.
Yeah.
And we know you don't have the history that your backup singer has.
Yeah, I've been trying not to rely on him as much. But yeah, we've tried to implement projects that fulfill those goals. Goal number 1 is addressing homelessness. Goal number 3 is addressing like infrastructure improvements. And we've done that with the North River Walk Trail Extension Project to benefit a census tract 101.01, which is known as the Low Income Census Tract. Also with the Washington and Broderick Lighting and Safety Project. That project was completed in 2023, which provided traffic signals and ADA accessibility to also Census Tract 101.01. And then just addressing homelessness, we purchased multiple motels and turned those motels into stabilized housing for program participants and homeless individuals. And Raul, can you please add on?
Yeah, no, I think what Isaiah just explained is 100% true. I mean, in addition to that, I think one of the ways that we also measure or assess the need is the council strategic planning that they do every year. Every year they set goals in that strategic plan that they want the city to meet. At the top of that priority has been homelessness. So we also use that as our gauge to focus on activities that are going to be advancing those strategic plans and goals that the council has set up to achieve. And then we look at the active projects that we have, active programs that we have, and how they fit into the goals in our consolidated plan. I don't think there's just one way to measure how we meet the needs and the goals. We have to look at various avenues, various reports, data Again, we look at what we have been doing, what active programs we have, what active projects we have, and very importantly, again, the strategic plan that the city council puts out every year. Because again, those are the goals that the city has laid out for the city to achieve, and we want to make sure that we meet those goals to the best of our ability.
So I would say too, being the old timer on this and having been through many of the 5-year plans as well as these, I think it's been very thoughtfully done. I have seen the emphasis shift over the years from small businesses to building our 2 places that we have here over at Gateway and Mercy Housing and the money that went into that. And then, you guys have been great about coming to us and saying, this is how many people Fair Housing has helped. This is how many people went through the Small Business Accelerator and got something. Here's how we've made progress on these things. And I think it's just been since the pandemic that we've seen the shift toward supportive services for helping unhoused residents. And all of these things just, you can't like spend money one year and see a change the next. Many of them take decades to see the change, and we see the change. So good job.
I have
Thank you.
2 more questions, but they're quick technical ones. And I'm sorry if I missed this in your presentation. When you select, I hear you talk about selecting the projects, but does that mean that a group has to apply for them? And that's my first question. And second is, what's the average award amount?
To answer the first question, well, I was thinking about the second question. The second question is we receive approximately $500,000 every year annually.
What's the average award amount for your project or grantee?
So last year was $519,475, and then the previous year was about $518,000 approximately. So it's around.
Oh, so there's only one to fund every year.
Oh, are you asking for the activities or are you asking for the total funding?
Per project. How much? What's the average award amount?
It varies. We try to allocate based on what CDBG allows. We always try to set aside the 20% to make sure that we cover our administrative costs. And at least for the last 4 years now, since COVID, we have allocated the maximum 15% of our annual allocation towards the supportive activity, which has been paying for the case management. That usually leaves around $380,000 for the last activity that we've done. And that's what has funded the Washington and Broderick Safety Program, that has funded a portion of the North Riverwalk Trail Extension Project. So we have funded projects. We have not funded specific grantees. Some jurisdictions do put out notice of funding availabilities, and they invite nonprofits to submit proposals. We have not done that, primarily because our allocation is fairly small, right? We have to try to be strategic in how we spend the funds. We haven't felt that awarding 20 grants of $5,000 to 20 nonprofits is going to give us the same outcome as if we focus on a specific project for 1 year or for 2 years. So because our annual allocation is relatively small, we haven't done the notice of funding for nonprofits to submit proposals. We do encourage them to do that, just like Mr. Bosley has done, to come to us and say, hey, I have this project. And we have been working for the last couple of years now with him to try to identify, if not CDBG, other funding sources that we can use for his project, because we do fully support what his organization is trying to do. But again, that's why we have selected project as opposed to awarding funds to grantees.
As I was listening to the presentation, I thought that there was like multiple projects in each cycle, but it looks like given the limited funding, there's like one big investment.
Correct. And some of the projects, some of the activities that we have funded over multiple years.
Got it.
Because again, say the North Riverwalk Trail Extension Project, that was, several millions of dollars. Our CDBG funds covered a portion of that, but we had to fund it over a couple of years. Same with the Broderick Washington Safety Project. We used 2 years' worth of allocation to fund that project. So it does often take multiple years just because of the amount of funding that we have.
I have
That
one
answer
quick
both your
question.
questions? Okay.
Excuse me. We bought 2 motels, city bought 2 motels last year, like Pickwick and the other one. So any CDBG funds used partially or whatever the percentage to fund that purchase?
Not for the purchase. So the city used local funding for the purchase of the motels. Last year, we allocated, as Isaiah noted, our activity money to fund the rehabilitation, the remodeling of those motels.
Oh,
There was, substantial rehab that needed to be done to bring them up to the standards that we need them so that we can begin to make placements into the units. So we are using CDBG funds in addition to other funding sources to cover the rehab of the motels. And that's another thing I do want to highlight is because CDBG funds are limited, we also look at activities that we can leverage other funding with our CDBG funds, right? North Riverwalk Trail. CDBG funds help leverage state funding. With the motel rehab, our CDBG funds help leverage BHBH funding from the county. They're helping leverage additional ARP funds from the county as well. So we do try to also be strategic in that way, knowing that our CDBG funds can only fund the portion typically of a project. We try to make sure that those CDBG dollars go a longer way by leveraging other funding sources.
Okay, I have a comment and a couple of questions. I'm going to have you work backwards through the slides. We'll start with this one, and this has got a date error on it. So you might want to just fix that. The last date. Easy to do this time of year. So you might want to fix that one before the next meeting. So if you can go backwards to the picture of the motel. I have a question about this rehab project. Who is doing the work on the rehab?
Our contractor, Maximus, they're completing the rehab work.
This seems like a great opportunity to leverage some of our job training programs and like the Northern California Construction Trade School, or even to work with the folks over in Don's program as opportunities for internships and to learn things.
Thank you. Yeah, that's actually a very, very good point. I think in the future, there may be a possibility for that. Because we do have a deadline to get placements into those units, we needed to move fairly fast in getting the rehab done. So that's why we did a solicitation. Our capital projects team helped us do the solicitation to solicit bids for the construction work. I think we got about 4 bids, and ultimately went with Maximus, and they've been doing a great job. They're actually ahead of schedule. The last update that we received from the construction manager, they anticipate most of the Pickwick Motel, the picture that you're looking at, to be completed within the next month and a half or so. And then the larger site, which is El Tejon, that one should be completed, probably around April or May at the latest.
So I think that's super, and I understand a deadline of getting people in there. I would just encourage us as we look forward to make sure that we're leveraging workforce training dollars too. It's another great way to do that, as well as teach the folks that are living there some usable skills that could help them get employed. All right, now if we could go back to the slide that shows the disbursement and the 100K that other way, right there. So we have faced this problem in the past that maybe the funds aren't going to be allocated. And fortunately, they have always come through, but we've had some troubling years. So I do want to make sure you've got this 20% for admin and planning plus the 100,000 in income. Should the funding not come forward, can the income that we have, the 100K, cover the administrative staff time so that we do not lose the momentum and institutional knowledge of the staff?
Not fully, so we would be limited to that 20%.
Yeah, but the 20% is almost the same amount as the income on this.
Correct, but that's because we're taking 20% of the total allocation, or the original 519 allocation. But because our program income, we could only take 20% of that program income. The rest has to be for activity
Okay.
funding. So we would only be able to use up to 20,000 of that 100,000 towards general ad.
And I'm sure you are all thinking of a backup plan if we don't get the allocation this year.
Correct. I mean, we are always looking for additional funding sources. These homeless emergency housing programs are not inexpensive to operate. We have been fairly successful in receiving grant funds from the state and from the county. We have various funding sources, and we're constantly looking at additional funding sources to make sure that we have funding for not just rehab work, but operations especially.
Super. And I would also like to say, if we get lucky and get bonus money, or some of these other projects come in under budget, it might be a great use of funds to spend a little bit of it helping with some initial work on the Mosaic Village. I know from having been a longtime attendee of that church, that property needs a ton of curb improvements and a lot of sewer and a lot of water and other things. So just put that in consideration if you find any extra quarters underneath the couch cushions. All right, other questions from JP? Colin? All right, so with this, I don't think we have a motion on this one because it goes to some other folks first, correct?
Yeah, it goes to the Parks Commission and then the council.
Okay, well, I would say take it to the Parks Commission with that one correction we talked about.
I will do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, now we are moving on to one of the single most important parts of our agenda, setting the meeting dates for next year. So you have in front of you Resolution 25-1 that sets the time and dates for the 2025 meetings. I did ask before this meeting started about the reappointment of commissioners, because usually in this meeting, we're swearing in new people. And we should know by the March meeting who's here and who's going to be a new face. So I would anticipate that we will definitely have that March 26th meeting. Otherwise, we meet every other month. And if we don't have anything to discuss or anything that needs to be held in public, those meetings are canceled. So we do need a movement by stating your name, somebody to motion that we accept these meeting dates and times.
Commissioner Vasquez moves to accept these meeting dates and times.
Commissioner Kemp seconds.
Excellent. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Oh, nobody voted to have more meetings than this? Okay. This passes then. And we move on to the last part, which is our director's report.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. I'm Tracy Michael, Director of the Economic Development and Housing Department, and I have a pretty lengthy report for you tonight because we've been very busy. First, Happy New Year. Thank you for being here. We're really excited that beginning this month, we launched our Small Business Accelerator Program. This has been in the making for years now, and our leadership, our council, approved allocating some of our Measure N funding for equitable economic development activities, which helped to fund this program. I know Megan was before you back at your last meeting in May to present the draft program, and council since then has approved it, and we launched the first phase. We have multiple components of the program, but I want to highlight one in particular that is very time sensitive for our local businesses, and that's our food and beverage facility enhancement grant component. This offers up to $15,000 of grant funding for eligible expenses associated with items that will help our food and beverage businesses prepare for the arrival of the athletics and the anticipated increase in foot traffic and business in general to our city. Very low barrier grants. Eligible expenses could include refreshing your dining spaces, technology upgrades, making improvements to kitchen operations and equipment. It's a reimbursement program, and we have already had 4 applicants so far that we're really excited about. So I want to get the word out there. If you know a small business in our community defined by having 15 or fewer FTEs and a gross annual revenues of $3 million or less. So if you fit into that category, you know of a business, please share the information. And for the public that might be watching, it's available on our website at cityofwestsacramento.org, our economic development and housing webpage. In addition to that component of the program that was really important to get going quickly, so our local businesses could take advantage of it before, dare I say, less than a month and a half away when baseball season starts. We also have a permit fee assistance program where we can help to reimburse for permit fees you have when you are moving forward with projects in our planning and building departments. We have a vandalism relief program. Any business that has vandalism can receive up to $5,000 a year to help cover the cost of damaged storefronts and interiors. And then in addition to that, we cover the cost for the purchase and installation of safe and secure camera systems that we work in coordination with our police department on. We have a facade grant program, we have tenant improvement grant program, and we have a microloan program that's not going to launch until later in the year, but all of the program information is available on our website. So I really wanted to make sure that we share that good news. We are trying to work out a system where any business, when they go to renew their business license, will get information about this program. So in addition to marketing, we're working with the chamber. We recently had a chamber lunch to share information on this program through our social media and websites and just interaction in general with our local businesses. We also hope the business license renewal process will be another great opportunity to touch every business that renews their license in the city. Next, I wanted to provide an update on Club Pheasant because it's one of the projects that I'm asked about often. This time last year, it's hard to believe we launched an RFP for the project site. Since then, we have received and screened proposals. We entered into an exclusive negotiation agreement with Ramcore Development. It's a partnership consisting of Dan Ramos, Mark Cordano, and the DeVere brothers, a really great team of very qualified developers for the special project that we are excited to bring to the Club Pheasant property. We're still negotiating those terms. We hope to have them wrapped up in the next month or two. So I'm going to say March or April, at which point the development team could move forward with their project concept that will be bringing high quality restaurant and retail spaces that really promote community gathering and honor the historical significance that that property has in our community. It was previously mentioned that we are working on the Pickwick and the El Tajon motel sites. I encourage you to drive by and take a look at all the activity out there. We're making really great progress. And as Isaiah mentioned, we are working on the acquisition of a third property in the area as well, so we can expand the programming there. Baseball. So all things baseball right now, it's all hands on deck. We're less than a month and a half away, and we have every department working diligently to prepare for the arrival of the athletics. And then also there's a number of items that I wanted to share with you. So security, traffic control, parking, and communication are really key components for us to ensure that we have a safe, an enjoyable experience for everyone. That includes game patrons, but it also includes our community members, our residents, and our businesses. So in the next several weeks, we're going to be working to test and launch an online parking reservation system. So for the first time, people who will be attending events or games at Sutter Health Park will have the ability to reserve their parking spaces online, including our city parking options that we offer. We are also working to expand security. We have an ordinance, a new security ordinance coming before council in March that addresses items that we didn't have to really deal with way back when baseball was first coming to West Sacramento, like drones, the use of drones, and Major League Baseball has some different security requirements. And so you may see that on the council agenda. It's an item we need to take forward in order to be able to provide the level of safety that is required, but also that's just more current. It reflects more current activities. And we also have contracted with a consulting firm to help us with tourism marketing and branding. This was already in process before, but we've launched that, and we're going to start to see components of that roll out probably after baseball season has just started, but something we'll be working on throughout the year. And we'll certainly be sharing information back with this commission. And then, of course, our Small Business Accelerator program, making sure we're getting the food and beverage facility enhancement program out there so that our businesses can take advantage of that. And then lastly, I want to mention an item, the Permanent Housing Local Allocation Program, or PHLA. The city is applying for this program. These are non-competitive funds that the state offers to support affordable housing development and other types of improvements that support low-income homeowners and residents in our community. We are taking this item to council on February 19th. And as part of that process, we do have to notice it as a public hearing. So that notice will start this Friday. So you might see that. And I wanted the commission to be aware that we're applying for the funds. It's about $404,000. Initially, we get updated annual allocations over time from the state. And we are required to apply 40% of those funds for programs that work to specifically either to promote home improvement, types of home improvements that support accessibility and security and safety for low-income residents. And we also have to have a 5-year plan that we make available for the public. So I'm thinking it's going to be, I'm looking at Raul, our website, I think, and we'll also have a newsletter item out on Friday's newsletter that will have more information about where you can access that plan. It's a very simple plan, but it is required to be done. That allocates generally money we're thinking will work with nonprofit organizations like Habitat for Humanity or Rebuilding Together. There could be others that can help us facilitate the home improvement projects. And then the balance we're proposing to support our emergency housing program operational costs. So that concludes my presentation. Is there any other information on the location of the draft 5-year plan?
Yeah, no, so we will have it up on the website on Friday. It'll be noticed on the news ledger, and we'll be sending out notifications to the HPAC, which is the Housing and Homeless Action Coalition, and we will be sending notifications as well to the Brighton Broderick Action Coalition, that's BBCAM. So we are trying to, get the word out so that people have an opportunity to take a look at the 5-year spending plan and comment to staff.
And as I mentioned, this was a little bit of a last-minute application. If we don't submit the application by the end of February, we lose the money. So we wanted to quickly get something in that would meet the requirements and make sure that we have access to those resources. Thank you for being here and for letting me share that very long director's update.
Thank you. And Tracy, I have one parking A's related question. Actually, I have two. But the first one is the lot that's over behind Walgreens, the city lot, is there a plan to monetize that during the A's games, or is that going to remain free parking up there?
That is a very good question. We've actually, currently the plan is to not make that available for public parking. But we are discussing a lot of other parking needs that related to employee parking and media parking and parking for, security staff. So that is in the mix of parking options for some of those other items, but we are not planning to make that available for public use at this time.
Okay, and I do ask a little selfishly because the food bank is out there Saturday mornings. And if we have to move, knowing sooner rather than later would be really helpful.
Thank you.
The other question that came up actually in a SACOG meeting was about microtransit, people bringing scooters, parking somewhere else, riding the scooters and bikes here and leaving them around here. So has there been a plan to think about how we might handle an excess of scooters sitting on our sidewalks while people attend a game?
Yes, I forgot to mention that we have several coordination meetings, different focus groups with Sacramento, because we realize that we're going to have a lot of visitors that are coming from across the river or going across the river and want to coordinate our activities. So that particular item, because there's a large volume of those types of devices that are likely to be coming potentially from across the river, those types of items are being discussed in that focus group. So I don't know what all of the potential solutions are yet, but that is one of the items that's.
Well, fortunately, we have 3 years to have first times and figure out solutions, right?
I anticipate we're going to learn a lot in year one.
And then I also have a question as well about traffic during the River Cats and athletics games. Is there any work on a joint traffic directory with the city of Sacramento in advising for traffic flow and that kind of thing when games get out and when they start?
Yes, very detailed traffic plan. It's being refined right now, and that is the exact type of information with our communication team that we're trying to make sure we get out early and make it readily available to our community. So we have great people who are very, experienced with a lot of these types of events. And we're implementing some new practices right now. For example, where is rideshare, pickup, drop off? We have to strategically locate that in an area that's not going to create conflict with other vehicular or pedestrian traffic. And so you're likely to see that rideshare location be around our city surface parking lot at Cabaldon Parkway and 7th, shifting it a little bit away from the stadium just to prevent some of the traffic congestion that we've been seeing as we've been monitoring more recent River Cats games. So we've been preparing and documenting to develop based on past practices to develop a new system for this first year. So more to come on that, and hopefully, we'll be getting that information out pretty soon. We're also having scheduling meetings with the local residents closest to Sutter Health Park and the businesses to make sure that they understand the traffic management plans, and also to ensure that they have access to parking too, for residents, for their guests, and for people who want to visit our local businesses.
I appreciate this update, and I have just wanted to post something out there that I know has been brought up in the past. Is the rising rent for small businesses. So I appreciate the focus. Every meeting I've attended, there's always some mention of support for food and beverage, like small businesses and restaurants. And as there's going to be an increased amount of traffic to the city because of the game, I'm just thinking about what options are going to be for people attending the game. And if small businesses are struggling, even with these grants to beautify their restaurant, address some of the needs that you had mentioned, they're going to continue to struggle staying afloat with rising rent costs. This is not a restaurant, but a business close to where I live in the Southport area has closed down permanently because their rent increased by $2,000. That's not the only story I hear. And so there is a huge effort to bring small businesses to come. I don't know whether or not they can sustain, their businesses if they're struggling with their rent. And so I know we've talked about this in the past. The solution is really complicated because there are, landlord rights and tenant rights, but I just hope it is a part of the conversation for this commission and your team and how to support those small businesses.
Thank you.
Thanks for the update. On the pheasant project, you said they will be finalized March or April. Is there after that any timeline they got to finish in 1 year, 2 year, or any part of the proposal, the timeline the group has?
Yeah, I mean, they're hoping to get going as soon as possible, but construction for the project is probably going to take up to a year to complete. And so once we have an executed purchase, sale, and use agreement, it's probably going to be about a year until, well, it'll probably be 6 to 8 months to have their plans reviewed and approved. And then from that point, once they go to construction, you're probably looking about a year worth of construction. So at least 1.5 years to 2 years before we have a completely finished project.
And we select a Ramcore group, but you know how many proposals came in?
We received multiple proposals, and their proposal was the one that was most responsive to the RFP in terms of both pricing and the concept.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to commissioner communications. We heard newsletters, we heard some things coming out about the new grant opportunity or funding opportunity. Any other commissioner communications? Looking at you, Danny.
No. Sorry.
All right, anything any one of our commissioners wants to communicate to each other? All right, well, I do appreciate everybody showing up this evening, and always appreciate staff, your great reports, the fact that you work a full 8-hour day and then have to sit here with us and past dinner time. We always appreciate it. And with that, we will adjourn tonight's meeting. Terrifying.